Alright guys, so this is my 1969 Ski Daddler Model 5816 Super Twin. It's got a 634 Hirth twin cylinder. And what I'm going to be doing today, as the title would suggest, is rebuild the engine. It's been running pretty bad. Doesn't seem to want to run the fuel pump very reliably, so I think it's time to just finally do a rebuild on this engine. So, first thing I probably want to do is pull off the stuff on this side of the engine, all the electrical stuff, and then I'll probably pop the clutch off, and then I'll take the engine off here. So let's get into the work. Alright, so here's the first try on pulling this. I say first try, of course, because it usually happens that I have to try multiple times before something will come off. So as I'm sure you can see here, that washer right there is just crumpling. These ones seem to be holding though, which is surprising. I kind of expected that they would all crumple, but so far it looks like I'm going to need to replace this washer and see if I can find a better washer for it. Alright guys, since this flywheel here was stuck so badly, I should start off by saying it's probably been a month since I've worked on this since I recorded the last clip. Since the flywheel was stuck so badly, I did a special video all about how to do that, so that part isn't going to be included in this video. I linked it in the description if you want to see it. I thought it would be more helpful to people if I made a specific video targeted at just the kind of problem you might be having, pulling off a stuck flywheel. So this is free now, so I can get this out of here, along with the all-important key that you don't want to lose. So the next thing that comes off is this fan housing, which I believe is just a bolt here and here, but I'm not sure yet. I think it's held on behind the stator here, so I'm going to have to try to take this off, and I'm going to try to show you that. So on second glance, this fan housing does not come off. This is built into the crankcase. I did not realize that, but that means this fan housing is staying here. So I guess I'm going to have to deal with that. Alright, so we've got two wires coming off the stator here. Well, a couple wires coming off the stator, but these two that we're going to take off here and here, I'm going to wrap them both with tape and mark them 1 and 2 and do the same for where they plug onto. so you don't forget which side goes where. A big old fancy 1, and a big old fancy 2. It doesn't matter which one actually goes to cylinder 1 and which one actually goes to cylinder 2. What matters is that they're marked so you can remember which side they bolt back onto when you're done. Alright, so the one I just unhooked is number 1, so before I unhook the other one, I'm going to mark it so I don't forget. Another thing that I'm going to say for my own personal reference here is that number 1 corner was up at the top right when this was originally bolted in place, and number 2 was down at the bottom left when this is originally bolted in place, so that I don't come back to put it back all back together and don't remember if this side goes up or if that side goes up. Okay, so having taken the wire off on the bottom here, which is number 2, I'm going to put a piece of tape over here. Now obviously the wire bolts on right here, but I'm going to put the tape here because there's no way to tape that tiny bolt. So I'm going to put the tape on right here, and then I'm just going to write a nice 2 right there. Nice, obvious 2. So that it's obvious where 1 and where 2 go. And that's it for this part. We got to move over and take the clutch off. Okay, so I've already loosened the clutch here. I've already removed the clutch bolt. So that'll come off, then you'll get top clutch plate off. And really you don't absolutely have to take this off because you can access the puller threads here without it, but I did this time. So I did a video a while back, you can go watch if you want, about how to use what is known as the water method to pull your clutch off. But at the moment I actually have the proper clutch puller for this. The story goes that I couldn't find a bolt that would thread into here just so I could use the water method to remove the clutch, because I couldn't get something that would match the threads. But there was a guy on Facebook who happened to have the right one, and he mailed it to me, lent it to me so I could use it. So a big thanks to him, because without him I wouldn't be doing this right now. I'd probably still be trying to figure out exactly how to measure the threads properly here, which I know you can do, but I don't have the tools for it. So anyway, I'm going to insert the puller and then pull the clutch off really quick. Shouldn't take long. Doesn't quite want to come off there, so I'm going to persuade it with the heat gun. So, a lot of heat later, clutch came off. Let's see if that's interesting. Very interesting. So this is just a tapered shaft here, nothing else. The clutch has a keyway in it. Apparently this clutch was for use on engines where it could either be keyed or it could also be used on just tapered shaft. Well, that's interesting. Alright, well, time to pull off exhaust, carburetor, things like that so I can get the engine taken off the sled itself. So I'm going to take the intake off here. I'm going to remove these plug wires so you guys can see a little better. There's 4 nuts along here. They're 1/2 inch, I believe, or 12 millimeter. Okay, so it's a 13 millimeter as it turns out. First one here is easy enough to get off. Alright, and so the last part that needs to come off for these to be fully disassembled is the coils. Alright. Alright, coils are off, coils are unplugged. Next thing to get rid of is the heads. Okay, next we have some Allen head bolts in here, which are always a pain to get out without stripping unless they're loose like this one. That's bad. That one was not very tight. It wasn't really loose, but it wasn't tight either. Oh, that one's already out. That one's all the way out. Yeah, it looks like I might have found one of the culprits in this thing not running right. When I put this back together, I'm probably going to replace all these with standard bolts, because I can't think of a single good reason to have them be Allen heads. Okay, the last one in there is one that stripped out a long while back, so in order to get it out of there, I cut a flat head slot into it, so we'll see if it's still going to come out of there or if I'm going to need to do something different. No, I got it. That's just one more reason to replace these all with standard bolts. One of them has a stripped head. Before you take the heads off, there's one thing I didn't quite do yet that I need to do. Gotta mark them so you get the right head back on the right side. And the PTO side, which is this side of the engine, is always cylinder 1, as I know it. Okay, this is head number 1. Got a nice 1 written on the tape there. Cylinder 2. And regardless of whether it's right that cylinder 1 is on PTO side, cylinder 2 is on the fan side, it doesn't matter so long as you remember which side you took which head off from. That's all that really matters here. Okay, cylinder is off. Once again, I'm going to mark this as cylinder 1 with some tape. Okay, just stick the tape to that pretty good. Doesn't have to be amazingly well stuck. Alright, now this can come off because it was stuck behind this groove here. So it couldn't come off before, but now with the cylinder off, it's off. Finally, I will mark this cylinder as cylinder 2. I'm just keeping a close eye out for any sealing issues on this sled. So the main thing I think is the problem with it is the crankcase seal job, I think, is not sufficient anymore to seal the crankcase. So just gonna have to see about popping the crankcase in half next. So again, there are Allen head screws down here holding the crankcase together. And they're really pretty well stuck there. So these things are in there incredibly tight. I broke one loose off camera. I had to use this rather large breaker bar. Okay, so I got one single one of these that won't come out. It's a little bit stripped in there. So, I'm probably going to have to drill the head off of the bolt here and then split the cases and grab it with a vice grip and break it loose. But that's something I can do, and I'm glad it's only one. I was worried a few of them or maybe all of them would do that, so that's good. I just have to get a drill and I can get it out. Well, there it is. Okay, so I popped the pistons off there really quick. Okay, so since my camera ran out of storage space, I can now tell you what happened is I split the cases, which are now in this building over here. I brought them over here so that I could use the air compressor to blow off all the metal shavings that got on it because I drilled the head off that bolt. And the crankshaft is over here. It's I got it pulled off of there. I got the oil seals slipped off the outside. They come off real easy. They just slide off. And now what I need to do next is use this puller here, pull these two bearings off. I'm only replacing the outside bearings and seals because I'm not interested in trying to figure out how this crankshaft splits. And these seals and bearings look and feel good, so I'm not going to worry about them for now. Actually, to tell the truth, these bearings look pretty good too, and the seals look pretty good too on here, but I think it'd be smart to, at the very least, replace bearings and seals on the outside of the crankshaft. And this bearing's a little more worn than the other one. Anyway, so I got to pull the bearings off, and then I can install the new ones. Okay, so since there's a threaded hole here, I'm going to slide a little bolt in it so I have something to push against with the puller. hopefully get this bearing pulled off here pretty easily, hopefully. Ah, I got it. Well, I don't mind saying I did not know if that was going to work, but it worked. Pulled the bearing right off of there. Alright. So, what I'm doing now is heating up the new bearings that I need to install. I'm heating them carefully and very slowly because I don't want to be hard on them or anything, but if I heat the bearings up a little bit, since it's cold out here, the crankshaft will be, you know, a little constricted because it's colder, and the bearings will expand when they heat up, and they should go on there really easy, and I won't have to hammer on them or press them or anything like that, I hope. So I just tested this bearing to see if it would fit. Since it's been heated up for a little while, I slid it over and then it got stuck. So I was forced to tap it on the rest of the way. What I did was I took the original bearings that I'm replacing, put them on there like that, and then put a socket up against it and just tapped it with my hammer there, and it slid on the rest of the way. Now it's 100% in its little spot to sit. It's seated. I just have to put on the other side bearing now. Okay, it slid all the way on easily. Now I just want to set it in the bottom half of the crankcase to make sure the bearings line up properly. And they do. Everything lines up perfectly. So that part of the job is done. Oh, I'll give you a better view of it too. See, this bearing on this side is just in between the two snap ring grooves there, as you can see. This bearing on this side has no snap rings, but it sits where it's supposed to sit, so I'm happy with that. Everything looks good. That's done with that part. This is that bolt that I had to drill off earlier. Look at that, it's free. Ooh, but it's hot. Alright, there we go. Alright, so I'm ready to put the crankshaft back in the crankcase over here. First thing I'm going to do is get a little bit of oil on here, and in this case I'm using bar and chain lubrication for chainsaws before putting the crank seals on to make them slide on easy so I don't damage the seal. Alright, I'm going to get a little oil on the crank seal, the inside edge here, and this side faces outwards. The side with the little annular spring in here is the inside edge. Goes on like this. Careful. Go. Oh, we got it. There we go. Alright, this one's on. Alright, so next I'm gonna just set it into here, into this crankshaft half here. Alright, now I got to line up all of these circlips, of which there are many. Alright. Now I'll install the circlips, which is a lot easier than getting them out. Just compress the top. Alright, got them all installed. New seals, new bearings. Alright, now for the next step. Alright, so next thing I'm going to do is start applying my gasket maker to the crank halves here. Okay, so with the gasket maker fully applied to both sides, I have to let it sit for about a minute, then I can join the surfaces together, but I can't tighten them down and put any torque on the bolts until 24 hours. Which is good because I still don't have the new bolts that I need for the crankcase. Alright, a minute later, and we're ready to put the top half of the crankcase on. Okay, it fit right on. Okay, so I got the flywheel and the stator back on. What I did to retime it was I matched the stator back up to where it was sitting originally because I think I couldn't figure out the retiming procedure with the tools I have on hand. So for now that'll do. I'll give it a test run, and if it doesn't run I know where to look first because I may not have got the timing back properly. But for now I'm going to focus on mounting the coils, and the way I'm going to do that, since those original coil mounts on the underside of the crankcase there, these 4 bolt points, they don't match up to the new coils I bought here. So what I did, as you can see by the atrociously ugly modification I made to the bottom of the crankcase there, I'm going to take this piece of angle iron that I cleaned the rust off the sides of, I'm going to mount it there, and mount 1 coil to either side of it here, and hopefully that will get the coils mounted properly and I can still reach these cords here to plug them in, and then hopefully we'll be getting this engine test running pretty soon. got the engine set down on there. It's not fully mounted yet, but it's partially mounted. Next, I'm going to put the intake and exhaust back on. And then I'm going to see if I can get it to run for a few seconds on a priming to make sure I've got all the timing right and everything. Let's get to that. So now you can see I have the intake and carburetor bolted up, and I have the exhaust header on. Now I'm going to see if it'll fire a couple times. Okay, so it looks like it wants to start. I'm going to have to put everything else back together. Well, first I'm going to put the exhaust back on. Yeah, I'm going to get the exhaust back on, and I'm going to put the clutch back on the engine. And then I'll rig up some kind of fuel system and test it. With the engine potentially running now, and a fuel system rigged up, my brother over here, he's going to weld a patch into the back of the ski where you can see a gaping hole, and then we're going to see if we can take it out in our limited amount of snow. Well, there it is. Now I just got to smooth it out. Let's see if it'll start up. Now we got the ski on. It's ready for a test drive. Alright, well that's going to do it for this video. As you can see, it runs, but the main problem we were having that was fixed was the fuel pump not working. As you can see, that is full of gas right now. It's definitely acting a little funny spark-wise. If we have any updates, I'll post a new video on that. But for now, the engine rebuild has been successful in fixing the problem, and hopefully I can get a ride video out soon. Hopefully it just needs new spark plugs. Any final words? No. Okay, well, then remember to like, comment, subscribe, and do all the things that get me stuff. See you next time.